entrance as possible. She should wait in her car until the intensity of the storm lessened, but she couldn't. What if Katie was hurt? Sadie grabbed her waterproof jacket, shoved open the door, threw the light coat over her head, and ran the short distance to the shelter of the porch. She'd hoped Katie would open the door, but she didn't. Sadie tried the knob. Locked. She dug into her purse and withdrew her copy of the cabin's key, which she'd always had on her, although she hadn't been back here since Brock returned to his family home next door and lived there. When she inserted the key into the lock, she turned it and stepped into the foyer. The large living area before her was neat with everything in its right place, just how her sister liked it. "Katie!" The shout rang through the silence. Sadie shivered and glanced at the water dripping off her wet clothes onto the wooden floor. She moved to a throw rug a few feet away while yelling, "Katie, I'm here! Where are you?" She tried to tap down the fear growing in the pit of her stomach, but she couldn't. She moved further into the cabin, crossing the room to the large fireplace and dropping her wet coat and purse onto the stones rather than the hardwood floor or furniture. Then she walked toward the kitchen, determined to search the house before totally panicking. As she checked the room and even the pantry closet, nothing seemed out of place, except a mug with a few sips of tea remaining sat next to the stainless steel sink. If Katie had left the cabin, she would have cleaned and put up any dishes she'd used. What if she was still here and hurt? The question prodded Sadie forward, and she hurriedly went through the rest of the first floor, a library/office and bathroom. Then she headed up the stairs, her steps quickening as she moved from one bedroom to the next one. At the end of the hall where Katie stayed, she slowed her frantic pace. Which was worse? Katie not here? Or her being in her bedroom hurt? Or... She pivoted toward the entrance, fortifying herself with a deep breath and pushing into the bedroom. It looked exactly like it had when she visited her sister. She stepped inside and walked around, then inspected the bathroom connected to the room. When she opened the closet door, her eyes widened. Brock Carrington pulled into his garage and turned off his engine, glad the rain was finally abating. Bella, his service dog, barked as she did every time they arrived home. He released Bella from her safety restraints. He did what he could to keep her protected because she'd brought him back from the edge after he returned to the United States from the war zone, a broken man. His life had fallen apart 4 years ago, but slowly he was rebuilding it. Brock entered his house. A red light on his landline phone indicated a message. He hurried to answer it in case it was one of the veterans from his coping group. The second he heard Sadie's voice, he tensed. He hadn't seen her in years, not since he'd broken off their engagement. The words, "I think Katie's in trouble," riveted his attention. His hand clutching the phone tightened. The fear he heard in her voice shook him. Although he lived next door to Katie for the past 3 years, every time he saw her he couldn't get Sadie out of his mind. The pain from their breakup had been too much to handle on top of dealing with PTSD and learning to live with a prosthetic leg from the knee down. Brock had avoided Katie as much as possible, until recently as he'd put his life back together. He had to go over and make sure Katie was all right, and then let Sadie know. His journey back from the edge of despair had tested him more than a firefight in Afghanistan, even the one that had taken a third of his squad out and left him close to death. He grabbed his rifle in case there was trouble and headed for the front door, calling Bella. His golden retriever trotted next to him as he departed his home and trekked across the yard into the wooded area surrounding the Williams family cabin. When he emerged from the grove, he spied 2 unfamiliar cars in front of Katie's place. Brock patted his leg, indicating to Bella to stay by his side, and crept forward. Memories of his last skirmish as a U.S. Marine flooded his mind. Sweat popped out on his forehead, and his heartbeat increased. Clothes and shoes littered the floor as though Sadie's sister frantically went through her wardrobe trying to decide what she should wear. A blank spot on the shelf above Sadie to the right drew her attention. Her sister's backpack was gone. Had Katie left willingly without telling Sadie, or had she been forced to leave? Had she driven away?